Paladin. This might be a pretty short video. I talked about in the cleric video embracing the idea of a holy warrior, one who wields magic to enhance their weapon attacks and uses weapon attacks to wield their magic. That sort of divine gish idea. And I had a few people say, well, that's really the Paladin, isn't it? To which I say, nay. I think that, I just do want to clarify that for the cleric, I don't think that should be the only kind of divine caster idea. I think there's tons of room in the game for more divine archetypes. Things like, the Invoker, the Avenger, lots and lots of space for divine casters, like a cloth-wearing priest, that kind of thing. But I'm just doing the classes as they exist in 5e. And now we are to the Paladin. How do I distinguish a Paladin from how I describe the cleric? No spells. No spells. My Paladin would not be a spellcaster. It would not have spell slots. It would not learn spells from a list. It would not prepare spells from a list either. I see the Paladin as doing three main things. It is a warrior, much like a fighter is. So it's going to go forward, soak attacks. It's going to attack with weapons. It's going to do the regular warrior stuff, wearing heavy armor. Sword and shield should be encouraged. And we'll get to how we do that in a moment. Number two, it should smite. Should have some sort of either a condition or a resource that it can spend, which allows it to do additional damage. That damage is magical. Radiant damage, probably. Sure, why not? Doing extra damage when you really need that oomph, And three, lay on hands. It should be able to touch a creature and heal them. Honestly, I kind of think lay on hands is okay in 5th edition. It's not fantastic. It's not the best healing that the game has to offer, but it's pretty good. And honestly, I don't think that a Paladin necessarily needs to be able to serve as a primary healer in the game. So I kind of think lay on hands is fine. Just as a quality of life improvement, I would probably make it a bonus action to use rather than an action. But other than that, and have to use it in 5 hit point chunks in order to prevent that, doing a bonus action 1 point heal on someone who's down. There are other ways to fix the yo-yo healing problem, but why exacerbate it, right? So lay on hands, get some adjustments, but I kind of like how it exists, where it's this pool of hit points that you spend to heal people. And then at higher levels, you can use those hit points to remove other conditions. I would probably expand that actually, because that's kind of cool. Smite. How does Smite work without spell slots? Pretty easily, to be honest. And what did I say before? You cannot fix martial characters without giving them maneuvers. And a Paladin is kind of half martial. So, a Paladin would get a series of powers that they can use. They generate a resource pool, kind of like a fighter does, like how I described with the fatigue. In fact, I think... or stamina, I guess. In fact, I think I would probably have fighters pulling, we could do this really as a half fighter thing, where you get stamina just like a fighter, you pull exploits off the fighter list, but a limited number of them, and then you're going to supplement that with smiting. Now, smiting is always going to take stamina, but it's going to be a more efficient use of stamina than your typical fighter maneuver in terms of just sheer damage. And then you are going to be able to recover stamina. You can recover stamina by smiting foes in certain ways. So, for example, if you smite an undead, you get a point of stamina back. just automatically, which means that any stamina you spent on that smite is reduced by 1. There is, like if you reduce an undead or a fiend to 0 hit points, you get stamina back. Basically, you're going to be fueling yourself by doing paladin-y things. When you use Lay on Hands, any amount of Lay on Hands, you get a stamina back. You know, if you, like you get a feature to protect an ally, you know, if they're being attacked, you like swap places, take the hit for them. When you do that, you get a stamina. So basically the mechanics are going to encourage you to do things that paladins should be doing. You should be laying on hands. You should be smiting the undead. You should be, you know, facing off against the fiends. All of this stuff is going to fuel you up because you don't have as much stamina as a fighter does. But you can recover it during the battle, like pretty easily. And you would need to make sure that this is not dependent on the DM. Like the DM, because like I mentioned undeads and fiends because those are classically the enemies that paladins really want to fight. To be clear, like those would be an exception. Most of the time, the stuff that you do to regain stamina should be things you're able to do pretty much every fight. You don't need to be able to, you shouldn't have to rely on the DM to give you the right kinds of monsters in order for you to use these features. So basically you are, you have like the smiting as like this set of maneuvers, kind of like what the fighter does. And you would have like your basic smites and then you'd have a few specialized smites. I kind of like that idea, honestly. I was, you know what? Actually, I was this close to saying that I like that idea from 5th edition because they have the different kinds of smites. And then I remembered, no, actually, they did it in 4th first. There's lots of different smites. There's like 60-some different smite abilities in 4th edition. So, like, you know, some of them would do more damage versus certain types of monsters. Some of them would do status effects, you know, maybe like a knockback and a knock prone kind of thing. You know, basically you would be picking off the fighter list, but you also have an expanded list of things specifically for the paladin. I think I like the idea of channel divinity as a sort of touchstone to like the fact that the paladin and the cleric are pulling from the same power source, and it is signified by channel divinity. So the paladin would also have channel divinity like a cleric does. So it'd have channel divinity and fighter maneuvers, and then its own little thing down here too, which would combine to create a unique playstyle that is unlike the cleric or the fighter. Because you are going to be smiting in, that's, you know, the smites are going to be stuff that the cleric does not do and stuff that the fighter does not do. You're going to be doing healing without spending spell slots. In a perfect world, you would reintroduce healing surges as a mechanic. Not 5e healing surges, 4e healing surges, please. At which point your Lay on Hands could work like the 4th edition Paladin's Lay on Hands, which is super cool, where you spend a surge, they recover as if they had spent a surge. So I think that's just a really good mechanic. Probably better than the pool of hit points to spend, but whatever. Either way. You know, actually that could be really cool. That could be cool as like a paladin specific mechanic. You have healing surges. When you would receive healing, you can, instead of getting that healing, spend a healing surge, recover 25% of your health. And Lay on Hands allows you to spend a surge on another character to let them recover that much health instead. That would be really cool, actually. Just thought of that on video. I think I like that as a replacement mechanic for Lay on Hands. I think that's really cool. So you would get, you know, what, 12, 13 surges per day to really like amp up that healing. And then of course you can trigger it on yourself too if you want. And that would allow the paladin to be this sort of like, they tank by recovering. They'd have a high AC, because they would get like fighting styles, kind of like a fighter does. So they get improved AC on top of wearing heavy armor and shield. And the fact that they're wielding a one-handed weapon shouldn't matter that much because the maneuvers and the exploits that they get access to enhance damage, like just a flat enhancement of damage that isn't based on the weapon's damage die. So it doesn't matter that you're wielding a like 1d8 weapon instead of a 2d6 weapon. It doesn't matter because you are adding a flat amount that is independent of your weapon. And so having the shield for the +2 AC is actually really good. So you'd be walking around with a pretty high AC in general, a high health pool in general, and then also enhanced ability to heal yourself. When you are healed by yourself or by others, you get like just baseline 25% of your max HP. That's really good. I think I like that as a mechanic. My phone is really upset at how warm it is in here, actually, and it's trying to conserve power. So we're gonna let's see. So you get some fighting styles like the fighter, like a curated list. I think exploits like a fighter, not the katas. I think the fighter katas, the at-will exploits, the ones that don't take any stamina, I think the Paladin doesn't get those. I think giving the Paladin extra oomph, like the fighter, probably a good idea. So that there's no question of like, can you smite more than once? Because I do like the idea that smites are free. They don't take an action. But they trigger when you hit. And so then you use the feature, so they are never wasted. They don't interact with concentration at all. No concentration. Concentration should not be a mechanic for the Paladin. They're a frontliner. They're meant to be taking hits. So they shouldn't have mechanics that punish them for taking hits. That's just me. I mean, Paladin should not have any concentration spells, and I'll take that to my grave. Or I'll die on that hill. Whatever the expression is for saying that, like, that I am certain of, and you're not going to change my mind. So yeah, no spells, but smites as a special type of maneuver, and the Paladin is going to have a resource system very much like the fighter, but it recovers differently. Because like the fighter gets to recover stamina on a short rest a certain number of times a day. The Paladin does not, but they recover stamina during the fights for doing Paladin-y kind of things. Tanking hits, healing allies, that sort of thing. So anyways, that's how I would redesign the Paladin. And how it is different than the Cleric, because the Paladin is not a half caster. It is more of a half fighter with another half playstyle sort of attached on there. Playtesting would, because this is all off the cuff. I have not even, like, some of these other class ideas, I'm sort of like, oh, I had some ideas. Maybe I wrote them down. Maybe I didn't. I sort of like have been mulling over how to do these classes. Not so for the Paladin. I spent no time thinking about this Paladin. Oh man, you can see the sweat just, ooh, it's dripping down there. It's coming down. Yeah. But playtesting, if this were to be a thing, playtesting would reveal whether or not being a half fighter is actually a good thing, or if I need to just scrap that whole idea and make the Paladin fully its own class with its own set of maneuvers. But I think the Paladin does sort of exist as a half fighter, half cleric class idea. And so I think taking elements from both and then giving it its own unique mechanics, and there's sweat in my eyes, would probably be the most evocative way to show that.